Edition of Sitting Down with Sgar. I'm the football voice of the Hoyas, Jeremy Hubert, joined by Georgetown head coach Rob Scarlotta. Rob, congratulations. Another nice win, 31-20 over Wagner this past Saturday. Again, big congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Let's start off here. Offense and special teams, I think, are going to get the pub from this one. But one thing I think you really got to be proud of is the way your defense kind of bowed up. It felt like a game where Wagner was going to try to out physical you guys. They got the run game going in the first half, but it feels like your defense really stepped up in the second half.
Yeah, we made some adjustments at halftime. They're a good football team. A lot of threats, big backs. So, for us, one of our three core principles is tackling, and we really came in at halftime and told our guys just to kind of settle in and made one or two adjustments for some of the formations they were giving us. And, I was really impressed how our kids came out, especially after the break, the lightning delay, and came out and really did a great job stopping the run there in the last, whatever that was, 7 to 9 minutes to end the game.
Let's stay with that. You briefly touched on it in the post-game interview with Derwin Gray, but getting your team ready to come out like they did, I know it's something you guys work on.
Yeah, it's something that you see after you coach for a while is, these things come up. So it goes in your head coaching book, and you just say, hey, on certain days, you'll practice some of these situations that are going to come up. So very powerful for us to have senior leaders in the room and our council to really just handle the locker room for us and tell the guys to sit down, relax, and when it comes time to play, we'll give us enough time to get warmed up and go back out. So really happy with how they handled the delay and came out and played very physical after the break.
And also big thumbs up to Uncrustables for keeping you guys fueled up very well. Coach, offensively, it wasn't a overwhelming performance, but it felt like you guys efficient, no turnovers. Danny Lauder didn't get sacked, and you made the big plays when they were there.
Yeah, the 2 games in a row, knock on wood, we haven't turned the ball over, which is great. We talk all about the ball each day. So for us, we really benefited from explosive plays. Des Thomas had about a 70-yard run, which really blew things open. And, the special teams really showed up for us. Our kickoff team controlled the field position most of the day. And anytime that you can return a punt for a touchdown, it's a pretty good day for you.
Coach, not to beat the dead horse, but I think fans are going to want to know the 2-quarterback system. It seemed to work again. How is it? Are you guys kind of getting a feel for when to go with both guys?
Yeah, the offensive coordinator's room is right down the hallway, so you can talk to Coach Spence. For us, we have a lot of competition in a lot of rooms. Our receiver core is extremely deep, defensive back. So, it's the same thing in the quarterback room, and that's really driving competition during the week, and it's a lot of fun, to work with 2 very good athletes, 2 guys with extremely elite skill sets, and the way I look at it is after being a defensive coordinator for a while, hopefully we're giving people different things that they have to prepare for during the week, having to deal with 2 different quarterbacks that have different styles.
Rob, I know you like your captain group this year and Giancarlo Rufo and Jimmy Kibble. And there's that old saying, if you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk. Well, those 2 against Wagner played such key roles. Giancarlo ends up winning Defensive Player of the Week in the Patriot League, 14 tackles, a bunch of negative plays caused. Jimmy had the touchdown catch, a bunch of big plays. One play, though, I thought that maybe impressed me more than any was Des Thomas in the game. He kind of throws one up for grabs. Jimmy comes out of nowhere, almost makes the catch, gets knocked head over heels. But when your guys see their captains playing like that, I'm sure that has to really jack them up as a team.
Yeah, it's the old saying, right? Coach-led teams can only go so far. We are a player-led team, and it's funny you say that. In my Monday meeting with the team, that was one of the first clips that I put up. That's a huge play. If he doesn't make that play and turn into a DB and almost catch that one, it's a turnover in our own end. So, seeing those guys give effort, not just like on game day and seeing the game film, but the way they practice at an elite level week in, week out. I think when you have 30 freshmen and newcomers in the program, it's great to be able to say, hey, listen, those are our leaders. Those are our captains. That's the work ethic that we want on the field, and it shows on Saturdays with the results.
Rob, let's stay with your award winners this week. Dean Mangiacavallo, the rookie of the week in the Patriot League, and he had 3.5 tackles for loss, had a sack and a half. Before the game, ironically, I talked to Coach Doherty, your defensive coordinator, and he's kind of running me down the list of the young guys who've made impacts. And at one point, he kind of does the pop to the forehead, goes, I forgot about Dean, but that's because I don't think of him almost as a freshman because he came in so ready to play. Talk about what he did against Wagner, what he's done all year.
Yeah, I think that group up front's done a great job, and it starts with Cam Spence and Coin Dang, our two coaches that are working with guys up front. So, Dean's a very accomplished player coming out of high school, played in the North-South game, won one of the awards in the North-South game in New Jersey, and, has done a great job grinding away. For big D linemen to get awards and get recognized, sometimes they do, and they take games over. He did. And he's a great talent for us, and I'm really excited to see how he develops throughout this year.
Rob, before we get to your third award winner this week, got to point out Thomas Anderson. He misses the early extra point and then goes on, had kind of a game you dream of as a specialist. He boots the big 48-yard field goal just before the half. 4 of his 6 kickoffs were touchbacks, which we know in the college game is so important. Talk about your kicker and the way he bounced back after that early struggle.
Yeah, well, I coach kickoffs, so he makes me really happy when he kicks the ball through the end zone. He's a competitor, and he is a specialist that it doesn't bother him. It's not that he doesn't care that he missed the extra point, but he just comes back out and is going to swing at it again. And I love that about him. So when we got in that 2-minute situation, I give Danny a lot of credit for engineering that drive. Survived the penalty during that whole thing and got us down in range. So have ultimate confidence in Thomas to line up and hit the kicks. And we've been working on the extra point piece of it for him, try and work some of those bugs out. But he's definitely another weapon for us in the special teams.
And your third Patriot League honoree of the week is our guest on the Sitting Down with Sgar Spotlight, Nick Dunneman. Nick won that Special Teams Player of the Year of the Week award. Nick, before we get to you, I want Coach Sgar to brag on you a little bit. What did you see, Coach? Did you think maybe he had a shot at breaking one this week?
Yeah, I work with a punt returner, so I always put myself next to the best athletes, right, and say I coach those guys and make me look great. I think it was a sequence of events, and I give Keenan Reynolds-Cook a lot of credit. We almost got one and blocked the punt the 2 times before, so I think that pressure was put on their punt team. Actually, the punter put the ball in the middle of the field instead of the sideline, and line drive kick, and Nick did a great job of getting vertical and taking it to the house. So, definitely a huge play in the game, huge momentum shift for us.
Well, Nick, again, thank you for taking some time. You're a repeat guest on Sitting Down with Sgar. Let's talk to you about it. What do you remember about that play?
It was really a great play for me because it was like Coach Sgar said, it was right down the line. I seen a small little gap, a hold up. It was a great hold up. Coach Omoko, he coaches our punt return very hard. So shout out to him. And I just hit the gap. Went to go bang my head on the goalpost.
Nick, it's interesting. I thought about this kind of going back to that time. And, I think we talked before. I was a former D3 player. You kind of jump in at Georgetown. In addition to wide receiver, you kind of jumped right in as a punt returner. I understand that early on you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm going to make myself an impact here. Now you're an upperclassman, and you've been doing this for a while, and you're a starting wide receiver, but it still feels like you attack punt returns with that same aplomb that you did as the newbie on campus. Do you still like getting back there and make your mark on punt return?
Yes, definitely. I love special teams, and I feel like to be on this team, you have to love special teams first. Like that's something I go by every day. I watch film, see what I can do every day within special teams, and getting back there, I've always kind of had a love for being back on punt return, just to show my creative side of what I can do with the ball, and just being able to have that opportunity excites me every day, and I love doing it.
You're a tough guy to defend back there. Coach Sgar, back to you. Nick's transfer from Union, lower level. What do you remember about that process of bringing him in, transfer portal, and a guy that you thought could make an impact on the Hilltop?
Yeah, Nick's an ultimate competitor, whether it's practice and, today we ran some 2-on-2s and some 1-on-1s, and he's got it's always going to step up and want the ball in his hands. And we saw that a little bit coming out of high school and then what he was able to do at Union, and he's just continued it here.
Nick, take me back to that time for you. Why did you think Georgetown was a good fit when you were looking to raise your game up to a different level?
Yeah, well, Georgetown, I was probably in the portal for about a month, and Georgetown was like the main school coming for me, and they showed super interest in me. And then I met with Coach Sgar and a few other coaches and came on a visit. I was like, this is the place for me. Like, I want to leave my mark. I want to make my mark here.
Nick, one last one for you. We mentioned Jimmy Kibble while you were backstage. You and Jimmy, kind of the frontline receivers for this team, and it feels like both of you guys play with a chip on your shoulder, obviously for different reasons. Do you agree? And where do you think that comes from for you, and maybe where it comes from for Jimmy?
Yeah, Jimmy's like a brother for me. Like coming in, we kind of started. I know he was here his freshman year, and I came in my sophomore year, but we started playing both together our sophomore years, and just being able to talk to him every day, and being able to like see what he does on the field, then going out there and seeing what I could do on the field. It's just like a great relationship I have with him, and we go hard at it every day. Like every day we try to get better. Every day we work hard, and it's just a great relationship with me and him.
Well, you guys have made yourselves and this team better. Nick Dunneman, thank you again for joining us on Sitting Down with Scar.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Well, Coach, before we wrap this one up, got to ask you about the opponent this week. You guys are looking for the 3-0 start, your earliest Patriot League victory since 2011 if you get the victory over Lafayette. In your film study, what have you been able to figure out about the Leopards?
Yeah, Coach Troxel does a great job. They're a well-coached football team. They have size and speed, and had two really good games against Bowling Green and Stonehill. With a big victory, ran for a bunch of yards this past week. So these are always great games for us. It's always competitive. We like competing against these guys and have ultimate respect for their program. Looking forward to welcoming them to Cooper Field this weekend.
Coach, one more for you in regards to the Leopards. Last year, kind of a stunning, not that you won against Lafayette, but the way you won, 17-0 shutout up in Easton. I think a lot of folks' eyebrows are raised with that score. It felt like in that game, you slowed their running game down a bit. You got some turnovers. Is that kind of the hope this week after they rushed for over 300 yards against Stonehill last week that you could maybe try to make them one-dimensional?
Yeah, if you want to call Trox and let them know, that's the plan. We always talk about three core things, all about the ball. The ball is the program, explosives, and tackling. And those are things that we were far from perfect at, at Wagner. So if you look down our schedule, Jeremy, we play excellent football teams the entire season, especially within the Patriot League. So, we talk about it being Hoyas versus Hoyas every time we go out there. We're just looking to get better as a football team because we know we're playing quality opponents week in and week out.
Well, Coach, good luck in that one against the Leopards. We know you guys have had a pretty good record against Lafayette over the years. Hopefully that continues on Saturday.
Yeah, I hope so. Appreciate you, Jeremy. Thank you.
That'll wrap it up for another edition of Sitting Down with Scar. Remember, Georgetown opens Patriot League play on Saturday by hosting Lafayette. 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff on the Hilltop. See it in person if you're in the DMV or watch online at ESPN+. Thanks to Coach Scarlotta, reigning Patriot League Special Teamer of the Week, Nick Dunneman, and producer Eliza Kravitz. That's all for this edition of Sitting Down with Scar. I'm Jeremy Huber, and Hoya Saxa.